at some point, like we stood outside and we heard like it's just really quiet, like this eerie kind of quiet. And we heard gunshots, but we didn't imagine that the gunshots could possibly be anywhere near here. There's terrorists walking all over the streets. They took over the police station. And in the beginning, it was just like, this is impossible. I mean, it can't be. Like in nobody's worst nightmare were we able to even think of such a thing. They were literally at some point also in our backyard.
Welcome, everybody. This is Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today is Tzivia Pizems, all the way from Sderot, Israel. Thank you so much for joining us, Tzivia. I know it was hard to get you, and I'm really grateful that you joined. So thank you. Okay, so all of us here are probably wondering, what is it like right now in Sderot? Can you tell us a little about your situation? But before you even get to your situation, can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Sderot?
Yes. So I'm a real Brooklyn girl. Grew up in Crown Heights.
Yeah, I was waiting for the accent, and there was no accent.
And I married an Israeli boy. And we decided to move on to Sderot in Israel. His older brother, Rabbi Zevi Pizems, and his wife Sima are the shluchim here. And they had asked us to come out and join them, shluchim to do outreach work.
Right.
And we decided, sure, why not? It was a quiet little town where even Israelis didn't know where Sderot was on the map.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we moved here
how long
23 years ago.
23 years
23 years ago we moved here.
Wow. So you moved to a quiet little town that didn't have any rockets coming down on it, but just was a nice little town that you were doing your shlichus work in.
Correct. We just moved to a nice little southern town. Very nice.
How far is it from Gaza?
We're 1 kilometer away.
Whoa. Okay.
Quite close.
And then when did things start happening differently in Sderot?
So it actually started half a year after we moved here.
Wow.
The first rocket landed right behind where I lived.
Oh, wow.
And that's when it started. It was very, it was once in a while. It wasn't something people understood yet exactly what it is. It used to be very random. And then it started getting more intense as the years went on. It became something that was part of our lives, something we knew we had to get used to. And the government also did things to realizing that this is what life is like. So they did things to kind of help us. We started having an alarm system. Eventually we had the Iron Dome that came years later. But so we had, we just kept getting worse as the years went on.
What is it like to live in a place that you are constantly under a barrage of rockets? I mean, all these years.
So to us, it's normal, which is quite sad, actually. Because, sometimes my family says, you realize your kids are not the same as all the other kids. Like, wow. They're very different. They grew up differently. Once we were in New York, my son, he was 3, he was standing outside with my father and it was thundering. And he asked my father, oh, missiles fall here also?
Oh, wow.
Wow. To him, concept, that noise is a missile. This is different understandings, ways of thinking. Every time you walk out of the house, you think about, if I'm walking here, where can I go? Our houses are usually open in Sderot. Doors are open so that if you need to run into somebody's house, you can. And it's happened more than once. We've had people run into our home. We've had from our family running into people's homes.
Wow.
It's a very sad reality. It's a reality that's just exists.
Wow.
Something that if you don't live it, it's very, very hard to understand it.
Did you ever think of leaving?
No. We're here, on shlichus, on the rampage shlichus. We're not planning on going anywhere. We also usually don't leave when there are missiles.
Wow.
And that also started many, many years ago. I would say about 18 years ago. the Iron Dome didn't exist yet. And it was a town that was really, there were just hundreds landing a day. And many people in the city were leaving. And we were debating, we had 3 little kids, and we were debating, what do we need to do? Like, what's the right thing to do?
Sure.
So as Chassidim of the Rebbe, we wrote into the Igros Kodesh. The Igros Kodesh are a set of books where the Rebbe has written letters to people throughout the years. And now that we can't actually write to the Rebbe, we can write and open it and try to see if we can understand something that's relevant to us.
Right, sure. And, get some guidance for our own lives.
Get some guide, exactly. Right. So we did, and we got a beautiful answer where it said, and you'll help me translate, right, that Hashem is always watching and protecting us.
That God never slumbers or rests. He's always watching. Wow.
Correct. So we stay put. And we've seen lots of miracles with that staying put.
Really? Like what kind of miracles?
With the staying put and with the leaving. I mean, we've missiles hit surrounding our house a lot. Where we live, our streets. We had, 15 years ago, we had a missile land on one side of our house, on the side of the bedrooms. And like I said, we're always here. And it was the end of Hanukkah, after we finished doing everything every Chabad house does for Hanukkah. And the last day of Hanukkah, we usually went to Jerusalem to a friend of ours to celebrate with her. She was a widow. And so we went. And then the next day, we were informed that basically there are no schools open because it started becoming kind of a war again. So we said, you know what, we won't go back. And I was studying that year in Kfar Chabad to teach calls, to teach brides. That was I was learning. And so that's what we did. We said, we'll all drive to Kfar Chabad. I'll learn, and then we'll all go home. And we did. I went to study, and while I was studying, I got a phone call that a missile hit our home.
Your home, wow! And this is 15 years ago, you said.
Correct.
Wow, incredible. I mean, I remember when my older children were in a seminary in Israel, and one of them told me after Shabbat that they went to visit Sderot. I said, thank you for not telling me, before. I would have been so scared. So I'm just wondering how you live with that fear and that
I'm guessing she was by me.
Probably. And I just remember I was so grateful. Like, I was so grateful to hear about it afterwards, not because I wouldn't have, it would have been just such a worry for a mother to hear that. And yet you're living with that. And then
I think it's more difficult to be on your end. In other words, I think because we're living it, we're part of it. It's here as opposed to, being across the ocean and just hearing whatever, the radio is telling you, like whatever news you're getting. It's a bit more scary, I think.
Wow.
Than
actually
than being
there.
here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that was then. Now the situation is there's rockets everywhere. I mean, the situation completely changed after where were you on October 7th in terms of the whole war that started?
Okay. So we, with Simchas Torah, we were actually home in Sderot. And to give you a little bit of background, about 10 years ago, my husband started doing outreach in the kibbutzim. So there are 10 kibbutzim that are considered Shah Negev. And we started doing outreach in this kibbutzi. I personally teach in their school. I'm an English teacher in their school.
In which school?
In
these
Shah Negev. The kibbutzim. In other words, it's 10 kibbutzim. They all come together. The school is in one kind of like a campus. And my husband does outreach program. There's one kibbutz right across from Sderot. It's called Nilham. And he started doing their services on Friday night. The people there asked him, and he started coming. Now, for Simchas Torah, so in the beginning, the plan was that he's going to come during the day, and that they were going to have, prayers and hakapos to dance with the Torah. And when he drove there on Friday to drop off all the things that they should have for tomorrow, the, food and they said to him, you know what, Rabbi, we want to do tonight also. So he called me up and said, okay, I'm just staying in the kibbutz. It's like an hour walk from our house. And he did. He stayed there Friday night, and they did akapos, they prayed, and they danced with the Torah. And then they were deciding what to do about, the next during the day.
Right.
So they said that they wanted to do it really, really early. So my husband said, look, really early, I can't come. I mean, it's an hour walk. And
sure.
So that was the decision, that he's not coming, and they're going to do it really early in the morning, which ended up being a really big miracle, because if he would have walked there during the day, I mean, that was the whole walk. There were terrorists along the whole route.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So
just got chills. Oh my gosh. What a miracle.
So we woke up at 6:30, like everyone else in this country, with hundreds and hundreds of missiles. And to us, like I told you, it's 22 years away. It's nothing new. Like, okay, there are missiles. Stay inside. Go to the bomb shelter. The regular.
So you thought it was just regular, nothing out of the ordinary of what you've been experiencing for the last many years.
Correct. We just thought, okay, again, and it's going to end. It wasn't ending. And at some point, like we stood outside, and the heard, like, it's just really quiet, like this eerie kind of quiet. And we heard gunshots, but we didn't imagine that the gunshots could possibly be anywhere near here. And we were sure that maybe because it's so quiet, we're hearing it from the border. Now, the police station, which I'm sure you've heard about, and I'll tell you about soon, is 2 minutes walk one direction, and the Chabad house is the other direction. So we're kind of in the middle. So we were basically hearing what was going on in the police station, but we didn't actually know it until later on.
You mean when the terrorists got to the police station?
Correct. The terrorists got to the police station. They took over. They killed many of our cops, and it was a war. Just the police station itself was a war. And it kind of like it started like it got already like 10 o'clock, and we said, you know what, we have to go, because there's probably not a lot of people who are going to come, and so we need to make sure that we go.
You have to go where? Where were you going to go?
To the Chabad house.
To the Chabad house. Okay. Wow.
Because we didn't really know any different. Now, some people already knew, and our phone was actually ringing, but we didn't think for a second that we were sure it's just a mistake. Why should I answer?
Right.
So everyone who was here, which is my parents, Yossi and Zahava Brook, they live next to us now, and my husband and I, my married son and his wife, and 4 kids who were home, we all walked to the Chabad. And now together, we've walked through the stages, because we said, the missile shouldn't catch all of us on the street, because it's very hard for, so many people to like duck and run down. So we kind of went in like drops. Right. One person went, the next person went, and I was the last one to come. Me, my mother, my daughter, and my baby. And when we got to the Chabad house, they're like, first of all, it was locked. Understand why on earth would the door be locked? I mean, it's a Chabad house. Like, it's never locked. And, they asked, who is it? And we said, it's us. And they opened, and when we got inside, people started telling us, what's going on the streets. They're like, there are terrorists. And we're like, seriously? Like, what? No. Everything okay? Like, everybody's okay? Like, no, seriously. Like, there's terrorists walking all over the streets. They took over the police station. In the beginning, it was just like, it's impossible. I mean, it can't be. Like, in nobody's worst nightmare were we able to even think of such a thing. And then we started hearing, what happened in the party and what's going on.
And this was really like 2 minutes away from the police station, you said, or just a few minutes away that you were.
Correct.
So they were just right there, right in your backyard. I mean, basically, almost.
They were not almost. They were literally at some point also in our backyard.
Wow.
Yeah. They were really just everywhere.
Well, what a miracle also that you were able to walk to your Chabad house unharmed, all of you.
We had a lot of miracles.
Wow.
We really did. That was a real miracle, because they really weren't far from us. We also found out like they were on the streets adjacent to us. They were everywhere.
It's crazy.
And they were kind of gearing for synagogues. Yeah, because they knew that people were in the synagogue. And we know that there are also lots of people who were either going to synagogue, coming out, that were killed.
Sure. Wow.
That were.
So you stayed there? You stayed there the whole day?
So yes. Yeah. Once we got there, we understood that we shouldn't be going anywhere. And we stayed there locked in. And there happened to have been 10 men. So we were actually able to pray and dance. But we stayed there, and slowly we started hearing things. The army came. So they were already outside the building. But we kind of just, whatever we heard, we didn't really understand yet the extent of what was going on.
Right.
And how horrific it was. The first thing that really hit home was when we heard that Ophir Lichtenstein was killed. He is the head, kind of like the mayor of the kibbutzim. Mm-hmm. And he's a good friend of my husband's. Mm-hmm. And when we heard that, like, touched home. That was like, wait, like, we know him.
Wow.
His son is actually my student. One of my students.
Sorry.
And, that was like, okay, wait, this is real. And, so we stayed there locked in. And after the Shabbat went out, we still stayed there for like over an hour, like an hour and a half, till the army was outside, and they told us that we can drive home. We should drive without our lights on. Mm-hmm. And we basically put everyone into one car and drove as fast as we can. I don't live very far.
Sure.
And when we got home and we turned on our phones, we had like hundreds of messages from people who were trying to reach us, that they were sure that if we're not answering, then that we're probably not alive.
Oh, wow.
Because what was going on was that they were saying people who walked to synagogue were killed. And so that people put two and two together, and that's just what they assumed. At that point, I just tried really, really hard to be with my kids, to detach completely from radio, news, and everything like that. I told everyone who was in the house, we heard enough. We know that it's bad. And we decided that we're all going to stay in my parents. My parents live like in my yard. Mm-hmm. Kind of like in America, you would call it a guest house.
Right.
So they live right near me. We decided we'll all stay together by them. They have less windows than we do. So if glass shatters, then we said, let's all be together. And so we were in the house with doors closed, windows closed, shades closed, lights off.
What were you feeling? What were you feeling at that time?
I'm not sure I was feeling anything.
You just had to keep going.
I just kept going. I just tried keeping my kids sane, and as much as possible, just to sit next to them and be with them, and when they couldn't fall asleep.
Can I ask you how many children you have? What ages?
Yes, I have 10 kids.
Wow.
My eldest is turning 24. I have a 22-year-old son, a 20-year-old son who's married, and 19-year-old son, 16, a 14-and-a-half-year-old daughter, who she was home with us, a 12-and-a-half-year-old son, he was home with us. She does 11. She was with us. Hannah's 5 was with us, and I have an 11-month-old baby.
Oh, wow.
So...
So 11-month-old till your 14-year-old were home with you.
Correct. And we're just trying to keep some kind of to keep them relaxed, because they've already heard things.
Sure.
When we were in the Chabad, how much I was trying to say, just people don't talk next to the kids, didn't really help a lot.
Right.
And, when like the older ones are saying that they can't fall asleep, I could just sit down and tell them, open the Psalms and just start. There's nothing else we can do. There was just nothing to do. And we had to be quiet, because we were told that terrorists are walking around outside. Mm-hmm. So we should make sure that everything is closed, so they shouldn't know that there's anybody walking around. It was quite horrific. It was like living with this. Like any noise was like, oh, is it somebody? Like, is somebody touching the door? Somebody touching the windows?
Wow, what fear. Sure.
It really was. And then I don't think I slept very much that night. And I also had kids in New York. And so we tried and sisters in New York and family, and we tried figuring out a way to tell them that we're alive. So one of the people who works with my sister is not Jewish, so we called him. And we're like, hi, it's her parents. She said, oh, you're alive.
Oh,
we're
wow.
like, yes, and they please, we realized that obviously he already heard and knew.
Sure.
And we told him, please tell anybody you see. If you see the kids, if you see, my sister, my brother, anybody, just tell them you heard from us and we're alive.
Because it was still the holidays for them, because it's in Chutz La'aretz, it's outside of Israel, so they have another day of the holidays.
Exactly.
So they couldn't answer the phone, but this way they at least they knew what was happening, but they must have been terribly worried about you.
They were. My son said that he says, this is what we heard. We heard that terrorists came to Sderot, they attacked the police station, and they killed everyone who went to synagogue.
Oh,
they're
wow.
like, it wasn't a pleasant picture in our head.
Of course. Oh, it's terrible.
So that was really hard for them.
So that was that night. What happened after, like since then?
So Sunday morning, again, we were told, to stay inside and everything, and then the electricity went. Now we're talking about, besides for the terrorists, there are also missiles non-stop. I mean, just literally hundreds an hour. One of them hit the electricity. So now we were also inside, locked in without electricity. And by Monday, they started saying that people can go. Like they were safe. They didn't make it official. It only became official like Monday afternoon, where they told people you could leave your bomb shelters and go. There were people literally locked in their bomb shelters for 52 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, they said they heard terrorists. They knew there were terrorists in their buildings. They locked themselves in the bomb shelters, and they didn't leave for 52 hours. I mean, we have friends, and they had no cell service in the bomb shelter, and we tried calling. We were sure that we wouldn't hear from them again.
Right. Wow.
So we were relatively okay, as much as you can be, and of course by then we already started hearing what was going on and the atrocities that were going on and what happened by the party and in the kibbutzim. It was just horrific. Every time you heard something, it was horrific. Every time you heard something, it was just too much all over again.
Sure.
And by Monday, my mother was like, I think we need to go. She's like, I know you'd never leave, but I really think, this is something else.
Sure.
So
you mean leave Sderot?
Yes. So we went back to the same thing we did 18 years ago, and we rode into the Iris Kodesh, and we got two things. My mother got an answer to make a Sudas Hadag, which is a
celebration feast of gratitude after like usually something that you are celebrating, like a feast.
Correct. Usually it's after something, a
miraculous event or a happy event.
Right. So that was her answer. And we got something really interesting that we should ask the rabbi. So my husband asked his brother, and his brother said that the women and children should leave. So we said, okay, that's what we need to do now. So we're packing up and we're leaving. So, I looked around the house, and it was like, I said, I'm not sure if I feel like the people from the Ukraine or the people from the Holocaust that, looked around and thought, what am I taking? Am I coming back here again?
Of course. Wow. Just, like a refugee just running, right?
Literally. Yeah. And like, what's going to fit in a car with all the people? Just these really, just like basic, just take the few things that I can and let's go. We went to... I had just bought an electric car. So I was just getting used to the fact that, you need to recharge the car. Like I said, there was no electricity. So we said, okay, let's drive to the closest, safest place there is. So we got into the car, and I'm going to try to give you a picture of what it means to drive in a car where there are missiles flying. So first of all, no one's wearing a seatbelt. Baby's not in the car seat. Every older person is holding a younger person. Like my mother was holding my baby, and my 14-year-old was holding my 5-year-old. This way, if you need to get out of the car,
as fast
we
as
had
you
15
can.
seconds. We had 15 seconds.
Wow.
Try thinking about ways to do 15 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's even less today, but So you don't really have time to start opening your seatbelt and taking the baby out of the car seat. You don't have time for that.
Of course.
So
Wow.
we're leaving. It's a little bit after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we drove to a place called Bet Kama. It's a kibbutz, and it's an electric charger. And it's the closest place that was considered safe.
How far was that from you, from Sderot?
About 25-minute drive.
Really? So close. And that was safe?
Yeah. It just means we're going further out, away from the border.
Right.
So that was considered safe. And when we got there, I said we experienced what it means to be part of our nation. It was just unbelievable. First of all, there were people standing there and waiting and asking what can they help with. Like, there were hundreds of people there, and whatever you can possibly think of, baby food, diapers, games, toys, shampoo, like everything you can think of that you didn't think of when you ran out of your house, they had there. Because that was like the first place people were able to stop. They were getting out to people. There was food, anything. They just, what can we do to help? And then this really nice person saw that I was looking for an electric charger. He said, come to my house. And I charged in his house. And they were just really unbelievable.
So beautiful.
The love that you saw as being part of the Jewish nation was beautiful. I don't think there's another word.
We keep hearing this, but it's just so heartwarming to hear it each time. It's just so beautiful to hear, the generosity of people that just, and they're also going through, a lot. It's not people who are in comfort. I mean, a lot of people, everyone's related or knows someone who's related.
Yes.
So everyone's going through this. There's a war going on. Everyone's going through this hardship, but yet there's so many open hearts. That's so beautiful.
It really is. And we really experienced it. It was just amazing.
Wow.
We kept experiencing it again and again and again.
Wow.
It was just really, I don't think there's another word aside from beautiful.
Right.
It was during this horrific time to see this love, no matter, and they were from all walks of life. Literally, 2 days ago, we didn't agree with each other at all. It didn't really matter right now.
Right.
We're all the same.
Wow.
And that was something that was really unbelievable.
So did you stay there? Is that where you
we were on the way to Jerusalem. But when we got to Beit Kama, I got a phone call from my husband telling me that they had just caught 2 terrorists right outside my house.
Oh my gosh. How did you feel about leaving your husband and your boys? Like how did that feel?
No, my husband and my father.
Your husband and your father.
My son,
wow.
Myself.
Okay. But even so, how did you feel about that?
I knew that was the right thing to do. Just like the right thing to do was for me to go with the kids. That was the right thing to do. That's what we do. Chabad, we stay to help whatever we can. And that's what needed to be done now. My job now was to be with the kids and make sure they were okay. And his job was to stay and see what he can do for the people who are still here, to help them whatever way they can. There were people still stuck in their houses. People who called the Chabad house saying, we don't have baby food. We're stuck.
Right.
So they went out and tried to help. There are no stores. There's nothing available.
Sure.
The Chabad house became like a food bank for about 2 months after.
Really?
It really was something like unbelievable. So we celebrated another miracle that we weren't home when they caught 2 terrorists right outside our house. That was Monday. We finally got to Jerusalem. It just been long 3 days. And we went to family. And the next morning we woke up and our wake-up call was, your house was hit by a missile.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Completely,
so we were
completely hit? Completely destroyed?
Completely hit.
Oh, wow. Where was your husband then?
So my husband and my father were in my parents' house, and they went into the bomb shelter.
So right next door. Wow.
Yes, and they're like, okay, the whole house shook. Wow. So after that, they went up to see, they're like, and they went up and they're taking a video. They're like, oh, yep, definitely landed here. Like this really big hole in the wall, and the kitchen, the living room, everything is destroyed. But we just kept celebrating the fact that, all these miracles that we had left the night before, and it's a house. I mean, every time I start getting frustrated that I need to, fix it, I say, well, you know what? It's a house. I've lost students, I lost teachers, I lost friends. So it's a house.
Wow,
it's not a pleasant or a...
Right, not pleasant. What an attitude, though, yeah.
Yeah, but it is like every time.
Probably a lot of memories in there also.
Yeah, so we were able to take out some of the things.
Right, wow.
But it is, but I think that's the only way we can look at it.
Right.
Because, every time I start to think, oh, my house, I think, well, I can think of at least 30 names that of people that I personally know that were killed, murdered. Right. So, okay, it's a house.
Definitely puts it in perspective.
Definitely does. Oh, yes, definitely does. And so that was Tuesday. Then we stayed on in Jerusalem. And like I told you, just unbelievable people from Am Yisrael, lovely couple who lives in England. They gave us their house. They have a house in central Jerusalem. And they gave us their house. And we've been there.
That's where you are right now?
Well, we've been there.
Wow.
And it's really unbelievable because, I mean, we're talking about a really nice house and a couple that uses it as a vacation home, and they allowed a family with kids to come in. I was like, I have kids, right? Like, it's not going to be here.
Right, so special.
And they're just really unbelievable. Like, and they call me every week, how are you doing? And do you need anything? Is everything okay? Like, before Parshas Noach, when we read in the Torah about Noah's Ark, so she called me up and she's like, listen, in the third closet in this and this room, we have a toy, a Noah's Ark. Take it out so your daughter can play with it.
So sweet.
Really, just these small little things, or her nephew came to give us the key. He calls me up and said, I'm in the supermarket. What do you need?
Wow. So special.
Really, really is. So, yeah, we've been here. It's still really hard. It's still a war.
What is it like for your family to be? I mean, you're in a nice, beautiful place, thank God, but it must be still hard to be displaced. Away from home, away from school, away from everything.
It is. It's really a difficult place to be in. You just one home. And every time I say that, people say, you still don't have a home.
Right.
But even when we do go home, I still have to get mine fixed.
Right, sure.
So we've been back and forth to Sderot a few times. My husband has been here a lot. I mean, he used to stay there like the whole week and then just come join us for Shabbat.
Shabbat, wow.
And we've been to Sderot a few times. It's very, very, very loud here. It's like you really feel a war. I mean, you hear the IDF bombing Gaza. You hear that. Everything is shaky. Unfortunately, we hear the airplanes. Unfortunately, we hear the helicopters, which helicopters usually means that they're taking out injured. It's hard. Everywhere you go, you see the army, you see, the soldiers, and you see the jeeps, and it's just really a war here. Wow. And it's also really empty because everyone here is
Have people left Sderot?
Everyone, the government took everyone out.
Everyone out. So your husband is still, he's not there anymore. He's with you in...
He is. No, he's still there because not everybody left. Basically, you were able to, as a citizen of Sderot, you got the choice to leave. Right. And you were able to leave to go to a hotel. And it's paid by the government. So there are a lot of hotels around Jerusalem, the Dead Sea, Eilat, Tel Aviv, that have the citizens there. That's the citizens from Sderot. It's the citizens from the kibbutzim. It's anybody who was considered close to the border.
Right. Went there.
Was able to leave.
So
and they built in these places, they built like schools. Like,
wow.
So
right.
The hotel has a school and it has a nursery and it has a preschool. So that they're trying, to get everybody into some kind of sort of routine. Same for my kids. They join the schools in Jerusalem.
Right.
They join Chabad schools who,
right.
really just accepted them so openly. And like my son, there was a bus and the bus driver said, he's gladly going to come pick him up from our place and take him back and he doesn't want any money. Just really all these little things that...
Beautiful. Wow. So why did your husband have to stay in Sderot if everyone moved out?
Okay, so there were still citizens here. This city has about 35,000 citizens. and there was still about 5,000 left.
Wow.
There were elderly people who didn't want to leave, and they needed things.
They needed help.
Medication, even just things that they needed. And then it also became helping the soldiers with whatever they needed, because being that Sderot has been bombed for over 20 years, our schools are all bomb shelters. So our schools became army bases.
Oh, wow.
Because soldiers are in there, then they're protected.
Wow.
So now it became also working with the soldiers, doing whatever they can to help the soldiers. Was going and doing a lot of mitzvahs filming and bringing food to them and bringing supplies that people were trying to get in. And if you weren't either a citizen of Sderot or part of the army, you weren't allowed to drive in here.
Right.
So they would go out, people from the States that send equipment and things like that, they would go out and bring it in.
Right.
Whatever our girl people,
whatever he needs to do.
Whatever was needed, really.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's what they were really working on.
And how does he feel the mood is among the soldiers there and the people there?
They're very united, very focused, and their spirits are up. That they never, everybody's working really hard to make sure their spirits are up, whatever anybody can do. Even when I'm driving down the street and with the kids and we see soldiers or we see trucks, I always say, open the window and say hi. Or they always wave, that extra something
to show that we're behind you.
They placed soldiers in every school everywhere in the country. Okay, to stand a guard, a soldier. In my daughter's preschool in Jerusalem, there was a guard. I saw him walking around with this serious face, and then I saw a car drive up with, I guess, a mother with a child, and they gave him a little like 2 chocolates wrapped in something with a little note, and I guess they gave him and said something to him. The smile on his face. I said, it's unbelievable how these little things, showed appreciation and we're proud of you and thank you. So they feel like they're they're really doing and accomplishing, and it's really all these. I know people here do barbecues for the soldiers, here in Sderot.
Right.
People come, but they celebrate and singing and dancing, whatever they can do, really to keep their spirits up.
Wow, it's incredible. Are there any plans for you to be moving back, for people in Sderot to be moving back? I mean, I know you can't even move back; you need to rebuild the house first. But what about moving back to Sderot, or is it still too dangerous?
It's really not our decision. It's a government decision. And honestly, the decision keeps changing. They keep extending, and now they keep moving. And now they said, no, you're going to come back earlier. Officially, it was extended till the end of February. Now somebody told me, no, it was just moved up. So I don't really know. But it's basically a government decision, the army decision. I guess it's something that all of them together need to decide, and then they kind of just say, yes, okay, the citizens, you can come back.
Right.
I can come back if I want, but anybody who has children has nothing to do with it, because the schools are, and so
of course
people are back.
So can you give us some feeling of how you're managing on a day-to-day basis? What keeps you strong? I mean, I'm sure there's so many things that get us down, here, just things that get me down on a day-to-day basis. And yet you're dealing with the circumstances that are so crazy, so unusual, so out of the ordinary. How do you manage through it all? What inspires you in your day-to-day? What do you do when you're really feeling down about everything that's all around you, including a house that's no longer there?
So I think that's knowing that we have a purpose, and learning to sit us and knowing that, there's a reason for everything, even if we don't understand it. And that we need to believe that God is running the world. And I keep telling people, after Simchat Torah, after October 7th, if you didn't realize God was running the world, then you definitely realize that now. As just so many things went on simultaneously that you couldn't, you really just have to believe. And I think that's what keeps me going. And I also think the fact that I didn't really have a lot of time to think because I was on a constant go to make sure my kids were okay. That was really was really focused on that. And then once I was like with my kids, okay, I started with my students and my staff. So it was kind of like all around keep making sure that everyone is okay and everyone is, in a good place as best as they can and getting help if they need it.
Sure.
And then I had wonderful people around me in Jerusalem who just kept helping with whatever they possibly can. Like there's a Chabad cantorman, and she just kept doing things for the people. Every Tuesday there was something for kids, and for Shabbat, like she sent food and suppers I got in the beginning, like really things that just helped you because it wasn't available to do these things. And our friends who said, okay, you know what? You need to come have a cup of coffee with me. You have to stop and have you time.
Sure.
So I think they made me also get
more grounded for sure.
Place.
Wow.
But I definitely think that place where I know that, God is already the world. And I don't think anything else can keep us
keep us sane. Yeah.
Keep us going, because there is no other answer to so many things. And when we start to ask questions, they just don't end. They just don't. Why him, not me? Why they're not here?
Of course.
We just really can't understand. I mean, my eldest son lost many friends at the party.
Wow.
Many people there were his friends and he knew them. And he was dealing with that. Like, he lost friends.
Right.
So
and
I'm saying,
how's he managing? How's he dealing with it?
Right. So there were better days and worse days. So we were really, we were keeping track. We were on top of it, like what's going on with them. And then one day my mom was like, today, just slept a really. And I said, yeah, of course. It was the 30 days after. It was a hard day. He went, it's just difficult.
Of course.
So I'm saying all these things just help you put things into proportion and understand that we really can't understand anything.
Right.
And now we just have to keep praying that that God gives the government
the wisdom
to make the right decisions.
Right. 100%, for sure. Wow. You mentioned your students. Are you still dealing with your students?
Sure.
So you dealing with them on Zoom? This is students from the kibbutzim?
So these are students from kibbutzim. Now we have, I wouldn't say better or worse, but kibbutzim that literally went through a Holocaust, like Kfar Aza and Nachal.
Sure.
They have kibbutzim that are on the other side of Sderot, and they weren't really affected. So we have all kinds of students by us. But what the biggest problem is that they're all over the country. So they're not necessarily learning on Zoom. They've been placed into different schools, or we've created learning centers in different places. So I'm basically trying to keep my staff that moved back to the area and are able to go to learning centers that are here are physically teaching. I just have to keep track of everybody and see how everybody's doing. And,
wow, that sounds like a big job too. Yeah.
It is.
Of course. Yeah. And keeping up with all of your students and how they're doing, and emotionally and spiritually, everything.
Yeah. Sometimes emotionally, it's really hard.
Of course.
There are some that I still can't emotionally fall. I can't,
Right.
My husband went to the funeral of the head of the Moatzah, where I told him was his friend and his son is my student. And his wife told my husband, Rabbi Pizems, my husband answered your phone call half an hour before Simchat Torah, before Shabbos. She said it, I don't let him answer anybody's phone calls. But he said, Rabbi Pizems, I have to answer him.
Wow.
So, and he spoke to him, to wish him a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Sameach.
Wow.
And, It was an amazing person.
Wow. So sorry. Wow.
Thanks.
Wow. Tzivia, it's just unbelievable what you're going through and the whole situation there. It's so surreal. It's hard to even wrap our head around it. Is there any message that you want to give to people who are listening to this about anything that you'd like us to know? Or to do or anything?
Keep strong. And now that God runs the world, and if you ever feel like you want to do something and you don't know what, just pray. Because I think really that's the only thing we can do and make you feel like we're doing something. I mean, people are doing wonderful things. You know, people are sending things and people are coming to Israel to show the support. Everything is great. But, you know, sometimes we, the little people, say, what can we really do? Mm-hmm. And I always say, really, just pray. You know, or if you do know someone in Israel, send them a message. Tell them you're thinking about them. Mm-hmm. You know, just show that little something, you know. I don't know, join your community, do something together, and really remember that we really need to be together. We need to have achdus. We need to love one another, because that's the only thing that's going to keep us together.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love to hear when this Seudat Hoda'ah is going to take place. This celebration meal ceremony will take place when this is all over and you're back in your home, in a beautiful home rebuilt with peace in Israel and around the world.
Well, that will be with Mashiach.
Amen. Amen. May it be soon. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and stay strong and keep your smile. It's unbelievable. You just have this smile and this calm demeanor about you, even though everything around you is just a little bit of upheaval. Yeah, total upheaval, total chaos. Thank you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Wow. I just finished recording the interview with Tzivia Pizems, and her story from beginning to end is truly riveting. So scary at some points. I mean, she was just right outside of where the terrorists were. Her Chabad house was just a few-minute walk from the police station, which was attacked by the terrorists. And really, she experienced tremendous miracles throughout. Her story just was incredible. But what I found particularly incredible was her life is basically in turmoil. She's living in Jerusalem. Her husband is staying there in Sderot in order to help the residents that had to stay, the elderly, the people who could not leave. Her life is completely in turmoil with her rocket that had actually hit her house. And yet her answer to it all is that the way that she stays calm is just realizing that there's a purpose to it all. There's a God that runs the world, and there's a purpose to everything that happens. And I think that's a message that we can all take to home in applying to our own lives, that there are so many times where we have questions or we don't understand things, why it's happening this way, why it's not happening that way, why our life seems to be in shambles. And to the answer is something that we cannot answer. We don't know. But underlying the underlying thought that we could have is that there is a purpose to it all, despite the fact that the answers are not with us. And that's something that we can all take to home and to realize in our own lives. So if you enjoyed watching these podcasts, I hope that you are subscribed to receive them in your email inbox, because now you can subscribe and receive these podcasts weekly. These podcasts are also streaming on all streaming platforms, so you can get them there if you're driving in the car or walking or doing something along the way. And if you enjoy, please leave us a comment. We love to hear from you. We love to hear your feedback. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you enjoy. Tell us what you'd like to see. Thank you again for watching. This is Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories.